This is our third painting lesson today, and today we're going to start some work from our imagination. We're not going to look at a particular artist today, but we're going to listen to a story and we're going to see how we want to respond to that story. Now, even though painting is what we're concentrating on, today we're going to start by drawing a response to our story. So let's have a listen and find out about some characters in the story. Fred the Dragon. Last year I went to live in a very old house in the countryside. It was a lovely house, but the garden really needed a lot of work. So there were so many bushes and trees and plants in it, it almost looked like a wild jungle. I don't think anyone had looked after it for years and years. It was whilst I was walking around thinking what I should do to make it a bit tidier when I first heard the noise. It was a strange noise, not like anything I had heard before. It was a bit like a snuffle and a bit like a growl. I thought it might be a hedgehog until I saw one of the branches on the big apple tree move. I soon realised that whatever was making this noise was going to be a lot bigger than a hedgehog. Then I heard a sort of roaring sound, but it was a quiet roar. I wasn't frightened, but I was very curious. I peeped between the leaves of the tree and saw a truly amazing sight. Never in my life had I seen anything like this before. I wasn't certain, but I felt fairly sure that this must be a dragon. He had the most wonderful shiny scales. They sort of glistened and glinted in the sunlight, and I could see that they were made up of many different sorts of green. He was the most beautiful creature I had ever seen, and I was so pleased that he was in my garden. He was a bit shy at first and wanted to hide away from me, but gradually we became good friends. I used to talk to him a lot, but it was a long time before he said anything to me. After a while, he told me that his name was Fred and that he wanted to know if he could help me. He dragged all the old bits of wood into a big pile, and then he breathed his hot dragon flame breath all over the wood and dried it out so that we could have a bonfire. I used to tell Fred about the places I had been to, but this made him sad. Fred told me he'd never been anywhere except this garden, and he said that more than anything else he would really love to go somewhere with me. The first place that I took Fred was Lowestoft Beach. He loved it there. He could run along the sand and have great fun jumping over the groins. I had to make sure the beach wasn't too busy in case he accidentally trod on someone. We mostly used to go early in the morning or at the end of the day when it was quiet. One day somebody complained that dragons shouldn't be allowed on the beach. They said Fred was too big and clumsy and that someone might get hurt. We stopped going to the beach for a few days. Then we had a visit from a very nice policeman. He told me that he had heard we were having some problems and that he would like to help. He had a very good idea that he wanted to share with us. He said that we could arrange for Fred to have somewhere else to exercise that would be a lot safer for everyone. He told us that it would be possible for him to organise it so that the bypass at Wangford would be closed every Tuesday evening between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock just for us to use. This was the best news ever. The next Tuesday at 10 minutes to 7, Fred and I were ready to go. I climbed onto his back and Fred started to run, then gallop. Little by little he flapped his wings and gradually we took off. I held onto his scales. I had never been that close to a dragon before. I could feel his skin and it wasn't at all rough. Each scale on his back was so much softer than I imagined. He soared gently into the air. I was just beginning to enjoy the ride when Fred started to swoop like a bird. Then, as we flew nearer to the ground, he flipped over onto his back. I did have to hold on very carefully. Fred could be just a bit playful at times. Flying on a dragon's back is one of the best things I have ever done. It's a bit like going for a really fast ride on your bike, only you're up in the air and it's fantastic to look down at the places below. The fields look like little pieces of patchwork fabric, all slightly different shades of green and brown and yellow, carefully sewn together like a big blanket. I like it when we fly over the village and all the people look like tiny stick creatures. I like to see the patterns of the roads. They're like thin lines drawn all over the countryside, and the cars that go along them are just like toy ones. Sometimes we sing as we fly. Fred doesn't know many of the words of the songs, so quite often he just likes to hum along. Flying with Fred is such fun. The wind rushes past your face and you feel as free as a bird. We both look forward to Tuesday nights. It gives Fred a really good chance to exercise and stretch his wings without bothering anyone. He has become very well known in the area. You will often hear people in our local shop talking about Fred the Dragon. Many folk make sure that they keep Tuesday night free so that they can go outside and see if they can spot Fred. I've tried taking Fred to other places. Once I took him out in my car. He liked it, but he did say that he was a bit squashed. Whenever we go anywhere, Fred likes to bring something back with him. His favourite things are shells and stones. He has quite a collection of these, and I often find him playing with them in my shed at the bottom of the garden. Okay, so now that we've heard the story, we need to think about what can we remember about Fred. What kind of a dragon was he? What did he look like? I wonder what you can remember from the story. Have a little think and then tell your partner. Okay, let's think about some ideas that we might have come up with. Did you remember that it said he was really big because he was able to move the branches of the big apple tree when I first saw him? He had great big wings, didn't he? Because he was able to soar and fly and swoop like a bird. Did you remember that he had lots of scales all over his skin that were different shades of green? We heard in the story that he was able to breathe fire. That might be something that you might want to concentrate on perhaps in your picture. He was a very friendly dragon as well. So you might want to possibly change your dragon from the sort of traditional idea of a fierce dragon into a friendly looking dragon. Now, when you're drawing your version of Fred, you don't have to draw all of him. You could just focus on his face. You could just focus on his scales even. You could just focus on part of him and part of his wings. Maybe you might want to have an image of him flying through the air so that you can see the ground looking far away beneath him. But whichever way you decide to focus on Fred, let's try to make our drawings as big as possible. Now you'll see when you see my example that I drew him on A4 paper, but even better than that would be if you were able to draw him on A3 paper. That's twice the size. So the bigger the paper that you have at home, the better. Try to draw your dragon as big as you possibly can and leave nice spaces between your lines. We don't need to colour him in today. We're just concentrating on his outline, the linear version of him. So we want to draw our outline, make it very clear, press lightly until you're happy with it because you might want to rub it out, and then you can go over it a little bit more with more pressure, make your lines a bit harder when you're happy with the way they are. After you've finished drawing him, you can then go over your lines to make them really stand out with a black pen, if you have a Sharpie or something like that. And then next week we're going to add some other media. We're going to use other things apart from pens and pencils. We're going to start our painting, and we're also going to use a bit of pastels on our work. But first of all today, we're thinking about drawing, first with pencil and then with a black pen. See how we get on.